In just a little while, it'll be the 76ers trying to break a 12-game losing streak in Toronto against the Raptors, who have the best record in the league, but are coming off a loss against the Denver Nuggets on Monday. Here's Philly head coach Brett Brown.
Coach, I know you said you have a selective amnesia from the last matchup here. How different is the team that you have tonight versus the one you had the first time around?
I mean, I think it's very different. But the fact is we haven't won up here. You know, we haven't won up here, and it's a combination of them being very good and, you know, us sort of growing our program. And I think last year's team, you could legitimately say would have been a fair fight. But we respect them, and I think the last game that we played this year, this team as it sits is very different.
Time with Kawhi in San Antonio and now coaching against him, how often did you find that teams offensively tried to avoid him, the defender, like whether that meant freezing out the guy that he was defending? Is that a real thing, or is that just kind of a myth?
Ask that question differently. I think I know what you're saying.
So, in essence,
would you avoid going at Kawhi's man because he's that good a defensive player?
Even if his man is a star.
Yeah, no, you know, Kawhi is that good. But in relation to, you know, avoiding Kawhi because, say, he's guarding Jimmy Butler, that's not going to happen.
What, I feel like we've talked to you about Kawhi a lot, but like, what has Danny brought to this whole thing and what they do?
That's a really good question. And when I'm watching them, I think the same thing in that I think that Danny is a security blanket for Kawhi. It's a comfort level. It's a friend. It's somebody that has shared, you know, a lot of high-level experiences with Kawhi, championship-level experiences. And so I would assume, and this is just my guess, that Kawhi would feel like he's not on an island. You know, he's got a friend with him that's a hell of a player, that's defensive-oriented like Kawhi is. And I'm guessing it would be, you know, a peace of mind type thing that that Kawhi would have with Danny.
Is he the kind of guy that's just naturally underrated by people? Because the stuff he does is a little more subtle.
I think so. I think when we started studying him, and then, you know, we gave him a second chance. Really, he was in Cleveland, and we brought him back. And the thing that stood out a lot was he really could make shots. And then you started noticing how good defensively he was. And then you started realizing he's actually a good shot blocker, you know, from a guard position. And you started looking at the deflections he would get on the ball. And, you know, when you can make a shot and you can defend, a little bit how we used to see Robert Covington, you know, back in the day. Well, you start having Timmy, Tony, Manu, you know, you had that piece, and then Kawhi, that piece became really important. And a role type of player, an incredibly serviceable player. And I think over the years he's gained more appreciation with some of the things that I just said.
Brett Brown, the Philly head coach, and of course former Spurs assistant who worked with both Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, answering questions from the Toronto reporters about those two guys and what they mean to this Raptor group. What has been Kawhi Leonard's impact on the Raptors so far? It's hard to argue with the record.
It's hard to argue with the record with and without him.
Yeah.
This Raptors team is so deep and talented. Nick Nurse has done such a fantastic job of continuing the development of some of those young guys and tapping into what's made them so effective. But I think the main difference with Kawhi is knowing that you have that true alpha, you know, a game closer. I go back to that Warriors-Raptors game where he and Kevin Durant are dueling down the stretch. There was no question where Kawhi was going on both ends of the floor at the end of those games. He's going to have the ball in his hands on offense, and he was going to be on the ball on Kevin Durant on the defensive end. And to me, that's been his big, you know, the big difference with Kawhi. I think Danny Green has been a much more subtle addition, but has been just as effective in his role as one of those complementary parts. He's been fantastic as a role player and another defender, you know, to add to that mix on an already good defensive team for Toronto, and a veteran shot maker that they've needed, you know, in terms of adding to that mix when you take DeMar DeRozan away and switch up some of those other parts. So I think both those guys have been exactly what you want them to be for the Raptors.
Man, I was talking with a friend the other day about the evolution of Kawhi Leonard. Steve Fisher was the coach at Michigan, right? Back in the day was
at San Diego State when he was there.
San Diego State, yeah.
So I remember Steve Fisher saying, I went to recruit him, and he maybe said 3 words in the whole recruiting process.
Seems right.
Right? And
Yeah.
everything
Maybe
matched.
3.5,
But he
2
saw long arms, the big old hands, the big old feet and everything, still had the braids and all that. But what he saw was someone that worked every day. So I had to remind people, he was a 4 and 5 man in college. Played the 5, right? So the fact that the Spurs saw the skill set, took him in the lab, and turned him into a bona fide best two-way player in our game, not no argument, when healthy. Now healthy, he's back guarding. You talk about the duel with him and Kevin Durant. He guarded him the whole game. Yes, Kevin made some big shots, but he was right there all game long, made the big shot. So now Brett Brown's telling everybody that this man right here, we know how good he is, but we're not going to try to shy away from him. So I like the way Brett Brown said, if he's guarding Jimmy Butler got to go at him. And let's see if it's going to be another one of those duels.
By the way, credit to the Spurs for identifying him the way they did. Because I remember watching him at San Diego State, when you could see the length, obviously, and they would put him at the top of a trap defensively. You thought, wow, that's pretty impressive for a guy 6'7", 6'8", to be out there at the college level, out there defending people in a trap and a press. But offensively, who could have seen that coming?
Nobody really saw that. So once again, for the Spurs staff and the way they develop guys, and now to continue to develop into MVP in the finals, I think is huge.
And credit to
Probably wish they had him.
No,
right now they do.
Kawhi Leonard as well, because a lot of times we talk about a team or franchise and how they grow and develop players. Kawhi has gone far beyond what the growth and development would have been for any player, what you would expect for a player with his profile. He was a Southern California all-star when he was coming out of high school. People forget that. It's not like he was some afterthought recruit. He just decided to go to San Diego State. That fit his personality, obviously. He wasn't looking for the spotlight or some,
Because he could have went to UCLA.
He could have went to a lot of other places, I'm sure. But give a lot of credit to Kawhi Leonard as well for putting in the work and grinding away to become the player he has, because I think it would be too easy to just say, well, it was he went to the Spurs. It was going to work out perfect. It could have worked out like this for him in a lot of places when you look at his skill set and his desire to be great. He might not want to talk about it, but there's no question about his desire to be great.
No, I'm not knocking his work ethic, but considering where they drafted him, all the teams that passed on him before they got to him,
remember
the fact
narrative,
that they drafted, that they traded
Let's
to
have
get
some
him.
more fun with it. Remember, the Spurs were in love with who?
George Hill.
Yeah.
Remember, that was Pop's guy, developed him the same way. He says, wait a minute, there's a 6'8" guy, got a big old hand like this. We're going to go get him.
No, good. But the point being, clearly they saw something there, and they wanted it, and like they've done so many times, they pulled it off. All right, lots more to get to here on Game Time.